Why does it always rain after you wash your car? Why does it seem that your car never starts when you need it to? Why is it always raining more on the weekend than any other day? Why is it that bad things seem to keep happening all the time? Did you step on a crack and gain bad luck? Why is it that good things are happening all the time? Why is it this, that, and the other things seem to be occurring more often than they've ever occurred before? Well, if you're experiencing something like this, where you've said or felt or think that you have seen and know for sure that some event is happening more often than normal, but you do not have the data, you're just relying on your own personal intuition, you are experiencing pattern seeking. Our brains love to take shortcuts, if you will. They remember the hits and forget the misses. So anything that's significant, that stands out as an oddity, will be remembered, whereas the normal, expected things will be forgotten. I can remember my driver's test the first time I took it because I failed, but I don't remember when I passed it. I know I did eventually, but I don't even remember doing it. I guess because once I did it and it was really easy and I got it and that was it. So why? Well, somebody else might have a different sort of memory that they really do remember their first and second try and third try, and the way that our memories work is slightly different for every person, but broadly speaking, our brains like to remember the things that are poignant or unusual and discard the ones that aren't. It's not a story, at least not one worth sharing, unless something interesting happens. I was on the way to work the other day and suddenly I felt this extreme uh, thing of something telling me to turn left. I did not turn left and nothing happened and I got to work just fine. Well, it's not a story. Who cares? In fact, you probably won't even remember that by the time you get to work. Maybe you will, but it's not even worth sharing. So you're bound to forget it eventually. But if you did turn left and then got back on the road and nothing else happened, it's still not a significant story. Now, if you add in that you glance behind you or you see in your rearview mirror accident, now something magical happens, at least in your brain. The association causation clicks, even though it's not really there for real, but to you it is. You see, that voice telling you to turn left and you doing it meant nothing until you saw there was an accident. And then you infer all sorts of things. Well, if I hadn't listened to that voice, I would have been in that accident. If I hadn't turned just then, it would have been me, or, all sorts of things that aren't necessarily warranted. And your brain simply doesn't remember all the times that you didn't turn left and nothing happened. It only remembers the times when you did. The false positive. I had somebody that I like on Twitter recently just say that they were noticing that it seemed to be more actively raining on the weekends than the weekdays. Now, that might very well be true, but without actual data to back it up, you're relying purely on your own intuition, your own brain's memory capacity, your own recollection. And if you have sparse data, well, then you might be doing you might be reaffirming what you already believe and say, well, I know that it rains more on the weekend. So, oh look, I've got some data from a couple weeks that shows that yes, it did rain more on the weekend, so I must be right. And then that is taken to confirm your rightness. But of course, without the data going back, years, there's no way to know. There was a number of news stories back in the day when electrical power lines had been more and more prevalent in small towns. And suddenly these small towns were saying, we have cancer, a whole bunch of cancer cases left, right, up and down, and it must be the power lines causing this. Now, they'd had these cases already, but they didn't report it. It was only when the power lines were there did they say, that's different. Hey, look, this other thing is going on. Must be related. A similar effect, of course, occurs for the whole vaccine and autism connection, because diagnosis of autism happens fairly close to when a kid gets most or all of their vaccines done. And so some nitwit somewhere associated causated that. And of course, there's other nitwit propaganda out there that's made it grow stronger since that initial connection. But this is the same sort of thing. Our ability in our own head to formulate connection and causation helps us to survive, but it also hinders us to discover what is really going on. And this is why taking down data, recording data by pen, or recording it verbally or with a camcorder or what have you, is such an important part of scientific endeavors, and why, to be really rigorous, you want multiple people recording the same event in different ways, because we can't rely on this to hold all the different details that are necessary to hold. Our brains are really good at surviving, but they're not great at identifying the nuances of connections in reality to other things going on. There's no way to know that turning left indeed, was any significant of not turning left that day. And why is it that you had that sensation of feeling? Who knows? Maybe it's, any number of possibilities, or maybe it didn't actually happen, but later on you thought that you felt that way because you did. You just felt like thinking back, like, oh yeah, I think that happened, but it didn't. So when we rely on our own senses, our own thoughts, memory, our own pattern seeking to arrive at any conclusion, they're going to be muddied by our own brain. And so it's very tempting, and also a lot easier to just go, well, I've been keeping track of my blood pressure every now and then, and I've written it down a couple times, and it seems to be doing fine. So, and I feel okay, so it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, my doctor said to watch it all the time. Whatever, it's good enough. Well, but you don't know how good it is because you're not keeping track of it all the time like you were told to. And although it might seem to you that it's fine and you feel like you've done enough, you don't have any idea what's going on because you didn't keep track of it. And you can't self-diagnose. You can't just declare, I'm perfectly fine. You don't know. Now, with the latest thing that's going around, the thing that shall not be named, there's no way to know if you have it or not without some test. You say, well, maybe I've had it and I have antibodies for it. Maybe, but you don't know that without any sort of test. So speculation isn't enough, and pure guesswork or betting isn't a good idea because it risks not only you, but potentially other people. But I feel like it's true, but oh, you don't know that it's true, but I've done some research. Yeah, but have you done enough? Have you tried to falsify what it is you think is true? Show that it isn't true. Go against your intuition and try to unravel the thing. See, we love to tell a story, and we do it without even knowing. And so anything and everything that happens to us is remembered when it's significant enough to be a story that we can share with others or even with our own self in a dream or later on as a memory. That doesn't mean that the things that happened didn't really happen, but maybe they didn't happen in exactly the way that you think that they did. Things might have been very different. I remember one time somebody said that I had said to bite me multiple times. I was like, no, I told the person to bite me one time. And they're like, no, 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 you said it multiple times. So who's right? Well, without any sort of objective way of verifying, we don't know who's right. Unless we got some sort of recording at the time, there's no way to know which of us is actually right. I could be right, they could be right, or maybe somewhere in the middle. We're both relying on our memory of some sort of event that triggered me to say bite me to somebody. And well, there's emotion involved and it's a little bit of a story. And so we're remembering the significant part about it and we're forgetting the rest because the rest, who cares? You don't remember brushing your teeth last week, but you did do that, right? Maybe, maybe not, but you just don't remember things that you do that you've done many, many times in the past. When you go to start your car, you expect it to start. And if it doesn't, that will frustrate you to no end and anger you and irritate you, and you will remember that. Especially if you were trying to get somewhere, have something important, then the added stress of that, and then it's like, oh, this always happens. No, it doesn't always happen. And in that moment, it's very tempting to allow your emotion to take over. Say, no, 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 things always go wrong for me, and I'm never gonna make it, and it's just everything just becomes a mountain when really it's not even a molehill. And this is the way our brains are, and they operate, and they do okay for keeping us alive, relatively speaking, broadly speaking, and they help us to have social interaction with each other, but they're really bad for compiling huge quantities of data, which is necessary for discovering how reality really is and how it works. I often see anti skeptics or apologists, theists, what have you, saying, well, can we trust our senses? We can't trust our brain. It's like, yeah, no, we can't. That's a good reason to be a skeptic, by the way. It's not a good reason to then go, well, I can believe in God because I have to trust my brain. And if I can't trust my brain, if there's no God, then I can't trust my brain, and that's bad. So how could I even know anything? It's like, well, maybe you can't know anything, and maybe that's a good reason to not trust your brain and be a skeptic. But well, then you can't know anything for sure. Well, that might be the case. So what? Still not an excuse to just believe in whatever it is willy nilly, is it? The consequence of any given belief, action, or lack of belief or lack of action is irrelevant from the truth of that idea. Either it's true or it's not true. Maybe it will indeed cause some horrible thing or some terrific, wonderful thing, but that just doesn't matter. It's either true or it's not. And that's that. Hopefully, the next time it rains, you won't think, well, I have to now wash my car. Because that would be kind of weird, wouldn't it? Like every time it rains, after it's done raining, you then go wash your car. Like, I'll show the universe. But of course, you could do that, and you could say, well, every time it rains, I wash my car. It's kind of weird, but okay. You remember the hits, you forget the misses. So whatever the idea is, if you think that you have the answer, you probably don't, unless you have the data. And if you do have the data, then you have to be really careful that you understand the data, that the data has been compiled correctly, and that others have looked at the data, and that you're willing to be wrong. And it's good to be wrong, because then you learn something. And if we learn and discover that we're wrong or discover something new, that can only be a good thing. And maybe it's something scary. Maybe it challenges a belief that you've held for a long time, and that can be hard, but it's necessary to challenge whatever it is you hold most dear. I hope that you're able to do that. Until next time that I do a thing, bye, or something. I still don't have a decent ending for this sort of thing.